Good morning, everyone. Last week, I was watching, I think it was last week, I was watching a YouTube video. It was a TED Talk. And in typical Ryushin Sensei fashion, I forget who the talk was by or what the title was. It's okay, brain, you're doing the best you can. I will put the link to the talk in the information section of this video when I post it. But the talk was about how we kind of look at ourselves and relate to ourselves, and how we often fall prey to our own inner critic. And the speaker was talking about, there's kind of like three layers of self. There's kind of the outward facing layer, which is really the person we're pretending to be. Competent and stable and without flaws and all that. And we often are in this mode when we're around others, and sometimes with ourselves too. It's like we need to be a certain way. And then kind of right underneath that is the person we're really afraid we might be. Like, ooh, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not actually competent, maybe people don't like me, maybe I'm ugly. All the fun things that our minds like to tell us we might be or we are, and to an extent, the large extent, the person we pretend to be is kind of like a reaction to that. And then underneath that is who we really are. When no one's looking, when we don't have to wear the mask, and when we aren't allowing ourselves to be how we are, we suffer. It's a lot of work and a lot of energy to be in that space where we're afraid about who we might be, and it's a lot of energy to keep up that mask of who we are pretending to be. And in Zazen, we sit and we sit and we sit and we sit until the mask just falls off. Suzuki Roshi in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, talks a little bit about kind of the reputation Zen has as being very strict and austere. And, from one perspective it is. From another perspective, it's really beautiful, because it strips away the need to pretend, and it strips away the need to be afraid that you are or aren't something, and just allows you to show up and be who you are. And that's what Zazen is, Shikantaza, just sitting. Really all you need to do is show up. That's it. We make it complicated because we think, oh, are we doing it right? Am I not a good meditator? Is the goal to become something special like a Buddha, or improve ourselves? But the ancestral teachers aren't lying to us when they pass down Shikantaza to us. It's just like sitting and being. It's just being ourselves. And if you come to sit with us in person, and if you've been in person, you've seen the Zendo set up. It's very uniform. We've got black cushions, and they're all kind of set in rows. We do things on a regular schedule. We'll ring the bell to sit, to start sitting. We ring the bell to stop, and things progress in a a fashion where it's predictable. We don't have to make many choices. And, some of us wear robes, and that might seem special, but as Seicho Sensei has said again and again and again, there's nothing special about wearing a robe. It's about like wearing it looks exotic to us, but it's wearing a, very plain black, non-form-fitting, loose piece of clothing. So we just like can not have to worry about, did I wear the right thing today? And there's no pressure to talk or to sound smart or more spiritual. I mean, one of the things that can be difficult if you've been to a Dharma group, or even, you might notice in like our spiritual circles, there might feel like when you say something, you need to sound like enlightened or something. Like you need to say the right thing. In Zen, we just like fucking get rid of that bullshit and just sit. What a relief. Kind of my personal koan that I've carried around for my whole life. I still carry it around as, am I good enough? And when I get grabbed by that, the content of that thought, then I find myself in like the fearful self mode, or, even worse, the pretending self mode. And, when I pay attention, I can really see that not only does that cause me suffering, it causes the people I'm with to suffer. Because I'm not showing up authentically. And when I don't show up authentically, and when we don't show up authentically in our lives, people can tell, like, then I need to mask now. So in Zazen, we sit and we sit and we sit until the mask drops off. And we're going to put it back on again. It doesn't shatter and go away. We're going to put it back on. And to a certain extent, we need to do that in life. Sometimes that is required. And I think the more we practice, the more I think we see we have a choice about that. Gyan Roshi has a really wonderful quote about the spirit with which we can practice Zazen, and I mentioned it on Monday morning if you were here. And he said, and he's commenting on Dogen's Gakudo Yojinshu, but also in Shobo Genzo, Fukanza Zengi, where Dogen says in his original version, when you practice Zazen, let go of the idea of becoming a Buddha. And in Gakudo Yojinshu, Dogen, it's kind of funny, he spends a fair amount of time admonishing the reader not to practice Zazen to become rich and famous. So it's kind of funny to think that somebody would practice Zazen with the intention of becoming rich and famous. There's probably other better avenues. But at the time, that Dogen lived, many priests and abbots and, Buddhist folks who were, living a Buddhist life were doing it in a way to accumulate wealth and prestige. But if you sort of like get under the specific language, I think Dogen is saying if you're practicing to build up your ability to pretend to be somebody or appear a certain way, it's probably a good idea to let go of that. And it can be subtle. It can be subtle because we might be practicing to become enlightened or something. So Gyan Roshi's quote was, when you sit, you don't have to try to do it a certain way or be a certain way. It's like you don't need to have your back perfectly straight. You don't need to look like a statue. None of that. You don't need to be trying to do anything special. He says it's enough to just let go of what you're carrying. Just let go and put it down. Put down the person you're pretending to be. Put down the struggle with who you're afraid you might be, and just be. And if we can practice that way, with each other, and you can practice that way of being on your cushion, and you can do it over and over and over again, then you start to get a sense of what that space is like, to just drop all you're carrying and just be. And then maybe you start to see that there's a choice about it. There's a letting go that can happen. And then when you see that letting go that can happen, then you might start to experiment with where else in your life that letting go can happen. Maybe it's not confined to the sort of 3x3 space of your zabuton. Maybe this is portable. But the pull to pretend and the pull to protect ourselves from the person we think we might be, the self-policing we do, which is often, it starts as others policing us, like, oh, you're that way, you shouldn't be that way, right? We just take on that. That's hard to let go of. It seems very risky. I get it. As I'm saying this out loud, my mind's like, what? You can't do this all the time. You should not be talking about this, Andy. It calls me Andy. It refuses to call me Ryushin Sensei. Not impressed by me at all. It's hard, but that's why we practice, and that's why it is a practice. The answer or resolution that Dogen came to with his personal koan, which was, if we all have Buddha nature, if we're already enlightened, why don't I feel like it? And his answer was, practice is enlightenment. The first thing he wrote when he got back from China was Fukanza Zengi, an instruction manual on how to do zazen. So it's a practice. It's not a state we get into. And it's a practice that we can do together and support each other in. So I'm very, very grateful to have all of you to practice with. I'm very, very grateful that all of you have shown up today. And in the future, if you wake up in the morning and it's a day that we've got morning zazen, or if it's Sunday and we have Sunday zazen, and you're like, I don't know if I can really do it today. I don't know if my mind is clear enough, or I don't know if I'm in the right headspace, or I'm kind of grumpy, or I don't want to, I don't feel like it, and you're thinking about skipping zazen, I just want you to know that the only thing that's required for you to practice is just to show up.